Hey everybody, this is Raphael and Sam, and today we're in the lively Highlands neighborhood to interview Mariah, Weyland, and Craig Pishotti, the innovative minds behind the new Paseo restaurant and Myriad hotel. This mixed-use development is located in the original Highlands, an area known for its welcoming atmosphere, eclectic vibes, and vibrant culinary scene. It also happens to be sandwiched between some of the higher growth areas Louisville has to offer, just a few short blocks from Paristown Point, Germantown, Phoenix Hill, and just a straight shot into downtown Louisville and Newwood. The location is a 10 out of 10.
As one of the only boutique hotel developments in the Highlands, this property blends a unique mix of elegant and sleek design with historical, colorful, and quirky features that are customary in the area. This project definitely lives up to the popular Keep Louisville Weird slogan, and we're excited to get the inside scoop from the team who made it all possible. This is your monthly neighborhood update with Sam Heine and Raphael Collazo.
Hey everyone, we're excited to be back. This month's edition of what we've been doing the last couple months. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to introduce a few of our guests. They've been doing a lot of great developments around town and really all across the region. So we're really excited to host Mariah and Craig. If you guys don't mind, could you guys introduce yourselves and then we'll kind of dive into the rest.
Sure. Mariah Gratz, I'm the CEO of Weyland Ventures and Common Bond Hotel Collection. Excited to be on the program.
Yeah, great. Craig Pishotti, COO of Common Bond Hotel Collection and Weyland Ventures Hospitality.
Yeah, I think the first place to start, it's such a cool aesthetic and feeling here. We're in Paseo right now, the new restaurant right off of Baxter Avenue. Bohemian, metropolitan type of feel to it. And with the boutique motel coming and the swim club out back, it just seems like it all flows really well together. Curious how you all came up with the concepts and collaborations for this project. Is it something that you saw in the neighborhood that it maybe needed or that it didn't have? What compelled you to go with this combination of things?
Sure. Well, it started, we actually looked at this building for their previous owner back 8 years ago. They hired us to do some layouts, and we looked at it as, retail on the first floor and multifamily up top. Where the swim club is now, there was just a conglomeration of industrial buildings. It was all buildings. There was no courtyard space. And that project ended up not happening. And then, fast forward to 2019, and Craig had come on board, and we were expanding into more hospitality avenues. He lived in the neighborhood. I live in the Highlands neighborhood, and we were talking about how there's no hotels in the Highlands. I think the Bellwether may have just been announced, but we just really thought that there was still a need for a Highlands hotel. And so we were looking up and down Bardstown Road at different properties, and about that time they announced that they were actually going to auction off this project. So we kind of pulled out the old plans and decided to see if we could make a hotel work. So, and then we have a fantastic design team in-house that really came up with the concepts for how it all fits together and, what we could do with it. So, I don't know if you have more color around that.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, the neighborhood certainly was craving something like this. The Highlands, obviously an iconic neighborhood in Louisville. The neighborhood has been so embracing of what we've done here. So that's a huge plus for us out of the gate. But back in 2019, it was just before COVID. I think it was October, November 2019 that we did the auction for this and got it, which was one of the most memorable days I'll have because it was fun with your dad and Bill Weyland walking and talking while we were drinking a little bourbon and hitting the click button and say, yeah, let's go a little higher. But as Mariah said, like the design team at Weyland Ventures and Common Bond, just super engaged, really understanding what's market driven. An amazing aesthetic as far as how do we develop something special, unique to the Highlands, which is really evocative of the Highlands neighborhood. It's got to be a little weird, right? It can't be finessed or perfected. It's got to be kind of cool, kind of chill, and I think the team there really pulled through on creating that.
Well, certainly, and I think the fact that you understand the neighborhood is a testament to that, because you definitely get the same type of vibes that you would normally get in some of these other establishments in the Highlands. It definitely has a unique feel that is typical of what the Highlands offers on a regular basis. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember I was here with 21C back in 2007 to 2012, and even back then, I was living in the Douglas Loop area, and I was like, God, the Highlands really needs a hotel. And so I had left and went to New York. I remember sitting at my Brooklyn table at the dining room thinking like, still have to do this. So it kind of percolated for like 4 or 5 years while being away, and then it was just great to be able to come back and partner with Mariah and Weyland Ventures to just explore this new hospitality scene in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you saw the need for the hotel in this area years prior, and then the right opportunity came along, and you built it out like that.
Yeah, I mean, I had totally the wrong site, which I'm glad that didn't work out. This is the ideal site for what we really had envisioned happening, so it's perfect.
Yeah, and to provide context too for those of you guys who are listening, this used to be a factory for the disco balls that were produced in Louisville, and at one point it was, I think, the primary distributor of disco balls in the country. So it's pretty impressive history. So
really interesting area too, because you've got the Paristown Point projects coming up, of just a massive development coming in the next few years, next 5 to 10 years, whatever the build out's going to be on that, and then it just shoots right down to downtown. There's a lot going on in Nulu, as you know, with projects going on down there. So it seems like all of those things, all those areas really feed off of each other. So it seems like a perfect location.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about is you had alluded to the fact that you guys bought this at auction in 2019. It was definitely an exciting time, and then COVID hit. So obviously that led to a lot of different things that were happening all across the country and everything else, and that's no different than here in Louisville. So can you kind of talk to us a little bit about, some of the challenges you guys faced as a result of buying something like this and taking on a project when we have massive shutdowns, we have supply chain constraints, and all these different things that culminated. And then also maybe if you could allude to the fact of the historical context and how you had to navigate, because you guys do a lot with historical buildings as well, so we'd love to learn.
Sure. So I mean, it delayed the project. So this was a 2020 starting out project, and then it became a 2021 project beginning of 2022. So for a long time, hospitality, anything hotel related, was a bad word when it came to banks, so nobody was interested. But I think that really gave our team, we took our time, we looked at where is hospitality going coming out of COVID, how do we embrace maybe a new way of traveling that travelers will have, that sense of authenticity, that sense of a unique destination, how do we put all that together? So I think ultimately the project benefited from being able to take a little bit more time. It definitely caused some strains, financially. Holding a building longer than you think you're going to have to hold it before you get to financial closing is always a problem. But the other thing it did, we were always going to go after historic tax credits for this project. That's one of the kind of bread and butter tools in our toolbox when it comes to revitalizing buildings and neighborhoods. So it allowed us to get through that process with the state and the federal folks, and we were actually able to go to the state of Kentucky and get tourism tax incentives as well for this project, because the state of Kentucky, coming out of COVID, was really looking at how do we amp up our tourism industry, how do we bring people back into the state. Bourbon, the bourbon tourism actually grew during COVID ultimately, and so there was a lot of momentum in that aspect of things with the state. So.
Yeah, I think it just made us smarter. As horrific, as the COVID period was, it made us smarter. It gave us the time to kind of really assess, and this indoor-outdoor space was always something that we wanted, right? Because there's nothing really like this in Louisville or in Kentucky that has that kind of dynamic poolside dining, lanais off of hotel rooms. So those things were always part of it, but as we laid it out, this outdoor component became a requirement. It wasn't optional. And we just became smarter during the COVID period, and like Mariah said, had that time really kind of finesse what we wanted to do.
Absolutely. Was that outdoor space something that you came up with during the delay of COVID?
Well, we always wanted it because, the intent of the restaurant was always to lean into the countries of the Mediterranean. So, Italy, Turkey, France, the Middle East, Spain, and that outdoor vibe was certainly something that we had to have part of the plan. But I just think it got pronounced, particularly with, the entranceway. Paseo in Spanish means a walkway or the end of an evening stroll. So that entrance of Paseo, that walkway, was a key component. That became more dynamic as a piece of the puzzle, and also gave us 36 more seats, for an indoor-outdoor cocktail lounge. and then the 30 seats outside for dining, and then the 48 seats at the pool. So there's really that outdoor vibe that will take us, and Louisville's got a great season, right? So it doesn't end, like the Northeast, summer keeps going, hopefully till October, or even mid-November. So yeah, I think it just made us really smarter, and the design team had a chance to really embrace those ideas more fully.
Yes. Yeah, and out of curiosity, as you had alluded to, some of the tax credits you guys sought after, and then the state actually reinforcing and doubling down on trying to get tourism back and running. I guess, what type of new incentives or new ideas has the state come up with that has really kind of helped you guys get up and going again?
So it didn't affect this project, but one of the things that the state did, it actually went into effect for this year, is that we greatly increased our historic tax credit pool. So you used to have a $5 million cap statewide. That went up to $100 million this year.
Oh, wow.
So it's a massive, obviously, amount. So instead of getting $200,000 for a project, we would get $2 million for a project. So you're gonna see a big impact of that coming up. They actually did the first pool this year, and it was oversubscribed. So they actually had close to $140 million worth of projects apply for the $100 million pool. So we didn't quite get as much money as the maximum available to each project, but it was a good amount. So that's really exciting. The tourism tax incentives have been a long-term program. I think that they are working to apply them to smaller projects now, which is great. So you can start to see that impact out in Bardstown and Frankfurt and E-Town and kind of the smaller cities that are being able to go after some of those tax credits and those tax incentives, which I think is really important to overall tourism in the state of Kentucky. I love Louisville. I want people to come to Louisville, but I also want them to go out in the state. I get really frustrated when I drive up I-65 and I just see Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. No, we have just as good of places, or better, that people should be coming to.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're incentivizing more saving of older buildings.
Saving of older buildings, I think authentic tourism into smaller cities, and really, we've got great national parks, we've got great state parks. We need to do a better job of marketing that to the outside world.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, the historical inventory. There's a lot of historical inventory here in Louisville, and really, like you said, the cities around the state. So I'm sure that's going to obviously bode well for the future of Kentucky as a whole. So that's exciting. So one of the things that I'm curious about is anytime that you have a hotel development that has an anchor like the restaurant concept, it's always kind of curious as to why they chose a particular type of restaurant, and how did that search happen? Like, what exactly was the logic behind going with this type of Mediterranean feel? And
Sure. I mean, everything we do is really market driven, right? The data plays a large role in how we assess what we want to do. Certainly we have personal tastes and personal ideas, but when it comes down to it, like you look at the Louisville market, there really isn't a substantial, when I say Mediterranean, I don't even like using that word. I think more the influences of the countries of the Mediterranean. We have wonderful Italian restaurants. I don't think we have a Spanish restaurant that's recognizable or at least celebrated in Louisville. So that was a component. And I think the way people are eating, when you think of Mediterranean, you think of the blue zone, right? The healthy way of living, but yet full flavor, robust spices. We've got a wood fire kitchen, wood fire grill, which was a huge component of how we were approaching flavor profiles. So market driven. Certainly the whole concept was thought of cohesively too, with this indoor-outdoor vibe, those doors completely open when the weather's not 100 degrees like it has been lately. And just a lot of outdoor cocktailing and snacking by the pool. The pool menu, that's going to all start August 10th, where you can get day passes at the pool. You go online, just like you would for Open Table to book a table. You can book a Chase Lounge or a day bed. So I think, part of the entire concept was that outdoor, because we're in the Mediterranean, you want to be outside, right? The weather's beautiful, the breezes are nice, it's hot, but it's still like you want to linger longer outside. And to be poolside dining, you can't do that in Louisville. It's really special.
Absolutely. So would you say that you chose the concept first and then decided to seek out the executive chefs and kind of fill in the gaps as far as the staffing is concerned, or was it somewhat of a balance at that point? It's more so just curiosity than anything.
Well, I think it all just naturally occurred. I mean, we're fortunate that most of our leadership team we've worked with for a number of years, so no one really at the higher level of leadership is new to us. So it was really based upon, culinary skill, leadership skill, our beverage program, our wine list. The people in charge of that have deep experience and passion about what they're doing, and are very exposed to the Mediterranean, how wines work in this country. Like, you don't find Israeli wines in Louisville very often. We've got some great Israeli wines on the menu, of course Spanish and Italian, but our culinary director really leans into Middle Eastern flavors, has always loved the Mediterranean. So I think, I won't say like one came before the other. There was like this, I think, natural kind of immersion. Would you say? Yeah, just kind of happened together. And we're fortunate that people wanted to work with us because, we're kind of cool to work with for the most part.
You have a track record, which is amazing.
We're doing cool stuff. Like
yeah,
stuff
of
that
course.
A lot of people wouldn't touch because it's scary to a lot of developers.
Absolutely. So with you mentioned the leadership team regarding the restaurant concept and everything else, I guess, were there any challenges with delivering the space in this condition and then ultimately delivering the menu as you now are offering to the public?
Delivering the space is always a challenge. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a historic building.
Yeah.
You come in, you find things, you end up, having to stabilize structures that you thought didn't need stabilization, and you find issues. But I think we've got a general contractor that we've worked with for decades, and so there's a lot of trust between our team and that team, and you work together to make it happen. And then you mentioned earlier, there's still huge supply chain and just weird issues coming out that haven't stabilized since COVID. So again, you just have to be flexible and deal with that on a day-to-day basis. Like at one point, we could get the roofing material, but you couldn't get the glue that secured the roof to the roof or to the underlayment. It's like, how does that even work? Like, I don't understand.
That's a delay you didn't see coming.
Yeah, so just stupid stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, you just deal with it and move forward. So.
Yeah, it's so amazing how, and obviously this is unrelated, but it's so amazing how supply chains have evolved over time to where now there's companies that just make one small piece that is integral to the actual production of space like this. Like back in the day, I worked at a company that made coaxial cables, and that's all they did. And they were able to deliver that across the country, but if you don't have that piece, you can't deliver the final product. And so it's kind of interesting to hear you say that.
It sounds like you all were pretty zeroed in on the original Highlands as seeing it as a neighborhood that could use a concept like this. And there's a lot of different ways that I'm sure you break down and analyze different neighborhoods and different projects in other areas. What are 2 or 3 other areas that you see a lot of potential in Louisville over the next 5 to 10 years from a growth and development standpoint?
Sure. So we're in New Lou. We've been developing in New Lou for 13 years now. So from when it was kind of just becoming New Lou, I still think there's huge growth in that area, and really ultimately connecting, the soccer stadium on the north all the way down to the medical district, which is going to continue to be a massive job center for the city. That eastern edge of downtown and then kind of bleeding into Paristown still has huge growth potential. I think the Highlands neighborhood will continue to grow. I think Bardstown Road's seeing a bit of a revitalization and rejuvenation, which is fantastic. We're also looking to the west side of the city, so we've got a project in the Shipping Port District at 14th and Lytle Street. And that area, it's just got a really cool vibe to it. So with Waterfront Park moving west and them starting to get some of those projects done, and then River Road ultimately connecting through, I think you're going to see some pretty big growth in that area as well, especially along the Ohio River into Portland. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
I would just add, like, downtown seems to be on fire, right? There's so much development happening downtown with new construction. and also historic preservation too. But it's kind of impressive to see like large brands coming into the city and committing to that, not just from a hospitality perspective, but commercial buildings and how we're kind of reusing. It's exciting for me to see how the reuse of the office towers will turn out, right? Like, we know people are working from home or working remotely, and those office towers aren't fully vacant like they used, or fully occupied like they used to be. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think it's important, definitely long term, to have a vibrant downtown. I feel like you see that in other markets across the country, and making sure we commit to improving downtown is obviously a commitment that the city should make. And I know you've been involved. Yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, downtown needs some revitalization, but I think there's a lot of good ideas at the table. Mm-hmm. And then the office tower issue is one that every city in the country is facing. I was in Denver a month ago, and they've got 3 or 4 office towers that are on the verge of default. So that's just that's something we're all going to have to figure out.
I get it.
I know Weyland Ventures has been all over downtown over the years. Mm-hmm. Louisville's interesting, like Nulu and Butchertown, like these off downtown areas really making big strides. And I mean, you'd imagine that momentum is just going to carry over into downtown, since it's just right a couple blocks away.
Yeah. So, well, I think it's interesting that the Mayor Greenberg came out and pretty early on in his administration put out 3 RFQs for potential development sites that are in downtown that are currently owned by the city. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But being able to get some of those pieces of property that are pretty large properties into the hands of private developers to incentivize additional development instead of them just being parking lots like they are right now, could make a huge impact downtown.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so one of the things we're curious about is, obviously you guys have your hands in so many different things around town and also around the region, really. Could you kind of talk a little bit about some of the future developments that you guys have going on? I know you guys have a footprint in Dayton. Newly Yards is coming up on Jefferson Street as well. So we're just kind of interested to hear your take on a few of those projects and what you see the future of Weyland Ventures.
Sure. You want to start with?
Sure. I mean, we recently purchased the Hardin County Courthouse in Elizabethtown, which is an exciting project, boutique hotel in the center of Elizabethtown. Beautiful historic courthouse, terrazzo floors, marble walls. I mean, it's just kind of a dream building and a great location. So that's in process. We're designing that right now. Have some really great partners in Elizabethtown. We have Paducah, which we've been working on for a couple of years, which is exciting. Paducah is a vibrant, artistic community. A lot of people don't get there because it's kind of tucked away and quite a distance to get there, about 4 hours from Louisville. But beautiful, beautiful town. It's right on the riverfront. So we're doing an 81-room new build construction there. We would have loved to have done a rehab. We always want historic rehabs, but it just didn't lend itself for Paducah. Great views, the rooftop bar and event space overlooking the Ohio River. A couple cool restaurant concepts that we're working on there. Again, 81 rooms. Gosh, Frankfurt is super exciting. That'll be the next one coming online. So it's an old warehouse. It'll be 48 rooms, just a red brick brought old warehouse. It's been a number of things through the years, right downtown on Broadway, East Broadway. Really excited about that. Again, tourism tax credits, historic tax credits. The Kentucky Tourism Academy has been really wonderful to work with and gracious, with us, because I think they see us really kind of changing the environment, changing the space, really activating things that will help others kind of latch onto and say, yeah, I want to do some things there too. So Frankfurt is online. We're going to say late spring, early summer of next year, and then a few other things that we're working with some third parties as management contracts, management agreements that we're not owning necessarily, but those are exciting too. Another one in Bardstown would be Bardstown number 2 for us, and then a second one in Frankfurt also. So that's going to get us to like six hotel projects, and then we're excited about like downtown development too. We think there's some opportunity there in the future.
Is that a second project outside of the Motor Lodge in Bardstown?
It is. So we opened Bardstown Motor Lodge in January of this year, and then there's a second project. It's announced. It's the old Holiday Inn off the Bluegrass Parkway. So that'll be 95 rooms.
Cool.
Just an iconic property. Like, you talk to anyone in Bardstown about that property, they either got married there, had prom there, had their first kiss there. I mean, there's a lot that happened, in that motel. And it's a prototype 1971 historic Holiday Inn, so it's super cool.
Awesome. And you alluded to management. When it comes to management, are you guys handling that in-house, or are you also outsourcing some of that management as well?
Yeah,
we do our management in-house.
That's amazing.
So we've always managed our, I'll say, more traditional buildings, apartments, condos, office space, all of that. Creating Weyland Ventures Hospitality in 2019 is the plan was then we would also be managing our own hotels, restaurants, kind of that outwardly facing piece of it a little bit more. So
I think it just creates a lot of power, like, to be vertically integrated like that. So it's kind of start to finish, right? You get to really decide what it needs to be from a market perspective. What are the financing models that work, which Weyland Ventures, are experts with multiple ways, multiple tools to really create, projects that probably would just sit for a long time, or had sit for a long time vacant. But because of these tools and the expertise has allowed us to kind of lean into that heavily. And then the team that we created with Common Bond Hotel Collection and with Weyland Ventures Hospitality in general, coupling that with the legacy company of Weyland Ventures of 30 years, has just, I think, created a really powerful force for us to be able to see something, move quickly, create, because we got in-house design, in-house architecture, in-house project management, in-house construction administration. There's just a lot of resources that we can tap into and move pretty swiftly to take things to market.
Yeah, got your concept down, it sounds like, and I love that you're going into smaller towns with it too.
That's awesome. And then you alluded to the 6 projects you have on the hospitality side. Regarding Newly Yards, which is another big project that you guys are working on, I'd be interested to hear about what the timeline looks like on some of those projects. I know that's going to be a mixed-use development incorporating a lot of different concepts, so
yep.
Love to hear some insights.
So 3 of the 4 buildings are under construction. We have a Tempo hotel going there, so that's a Hilton branded hotel. It'll actually be the 2nd Tempo, I believe, in the world to open. So we're excited about that. Well, it doesn't get to usually announce that. So, we're just behind New York City.
Just behind, right?
Well, we were going to be the first.
We were going to be the first.
So
and then
COVID.
Yeah. Oh no.
Is it COVID? But 2nd, so we'll take it. And then we've got a parking garage that kind of fits in right behind that services the rest of the uses. There's a commercial building on the corner. That's the project that's not under construction yet, honestly, because it's got to be used as lay down to get the parking garage in the hotel. It's a very tight site. And then we have a 189 unit market rate residential building that fits in behind it. But that's another example of how kind of all the different pieces of the organization come together, because the commercial building will have a food hall on the first floor and co-working on the 2nd floor. It's a concept that we're calling Mashup that will be managed by Weyland Ventures Hospitality, but then that community manager piece of it then feeds into how we're managing the residential, and is there, can we do programming, cross-programming between the different buildings? Are there ways that we can provide additional amenities and benefits to our tenants through that kind of management structure where we're very deeply managing the food hall and the co-working in addition to everything else. So it's exciting. And then ultimately in Newly we've got additional, mostly multifamily, maybe some townhouse style projects that are going to happen throughout the kind of rest of the neighborhood over the next few years. So we're excited about those as well.
Yeah, because you also have been involved in the Hancock House across the street, and I believe also you guys built 310 at Nulu, if I'm not mistaken.
310 at Nulu, so again, we've been building in this neighborhood for
many years,
13 plus years.
Yeah.
And we've got a few more phases to finish it out, and some of the final phases will be, smaller. So instead of a huge multifamily, how do we do, can we do some townhouse style homes that are then for sale? Can we do some smaller, multifamily buildings that might appeal to a different demographic than the large multifamily buildings? So we're playing with some different concepts with that right now.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, first off, thanks so much for your time. I know that a lot of people are going to gain value from this conversation. This is obviously a new concept that you guys have been bringing to market. It's obviously we talked offline a little bit about you guys' reception regarding Paseo. It's been booked up solid, and I'm really excited to try out the restaurant and hopefully lounge by the pool at some point too. So
Yeah.
For sure.
yeah,
Appreciate it, you all.
thank you all so much.
Thank you.